Welcome to this World Satsanga held on the 23rd of March 2022 in conjunction with Kevin Moore and The Moore Show. And as usual, I encourage you to look at his YouTube channel, The Kevin Moore Show, and see his latest documentary series on They Call Us Channelers. It's looking very good. Lots and lots of different individuals, lots of different skill sets, lots and lots of ways of understanding and communicating with the greater reality. Well, this is the lecture for today. It's basically about the milestones, or should I say the signposts that we're experiencing right now and what they mean to us. Well, we're experiencing three signposts. One is environmental, one is, if you like, disease or a function of low frequency, and the other one is how we interact with each other. And you can see that the environmental one is to do with global warming or world climate change, which is not just a function of our terrible way we treat the planet, but it's also a natural phenomenon as well, with larger weather systems. The disease is basically about the viruses that we're experiencing as a function of our lower frequency. As we drop down the frequencies, we start to become more susceptible to the gross physical. That means that we can get diseases easily or viruses easily, and that's where the COVID-19 virus comes into it. And the interactive part of it is how we work with each other, how we're of service to each other. And right now we're experiencing a completely selfish way of working with each other, which is resulting right now in the confrontation that Russia is having with the Ukraine. So the first part, really about the environment, is a sign that we need to look after our home, really, and we're not. We've abused it. We've taken fossil fuels out of the earth. We've burnt those fossil fuels, and we've contaminated the atmosphere. We've also stripped a lot of the wider forest areas. The whole of Europe at one point was covered in forest. The Black Forest in Germany was huge at one point. The Forest of Arden in the UK was huge at one point. And of course, the rainforests that are around South America and certainly Brazil also were massive at one point and are disappearing at an unprecedented and alarming rate. And these things cause issues in total. On top of that is the normal function of climate change that occurs as a result of the Earth wobbling on its axis, because it does wobble on its axis. And we had a recent wobble, moved about 5 degrees, I believe, it might be more. And also the movement of the core of the Earth changing its rotational position within relevant to the outside crust of the Earth. And this causes a change in the magnetic poles as well. So we experience pole shifts on a regular basis, usually around 12 to 12,500 years. And we've got evidence that this actually does happen, some physical evidence that this actually does happen. So those things together with how we treat the Earth creates a condition where the total weather system of the Earth is affected, because not only do we have the natural function of the weather being affected by the magnetic poles moving, the change of the axis or the orientation of the Earth on its axis and how it rotates around the sun, but also we've got the rest of the effects of how these things affect the weather system and how the cleansing, should we say, of the Earth's atmosphere is affected by the loss of plant life and tree life. So we've got a lot of problems there. We all affect the weather systems. The quality of our environment disappears as a result of it. So as we lose trees, we lose the ability to remove the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and replace it with oxygen. That's what trees and plants do. As we start to burn fossil fuels, we start to create more carbon dioxide, which creates a condition where we start to get holes in the ozone layer, those sorts of things. So we're starting to experience more cosmic rays and more UVA and UVB light on us, which creates skin cancer. So we're getting all sorts of things occurring all at the same time, where we're affecting it. We're affecting what is a normal phenomenon and making it worse. So our way in which we pollute the earth or don't look after the earth amplifies some of the natural phenomena that are there as a result of pole shifts and axis movement on the earth. So that's one thing. We need to understand these things to be able to work properly with our planet, to be able to live here properly, to respect it. And so that's the one signpost. The second signpost is a result of us dropping down the frequencies, but it's also a function of our lack of self-care, as well as the self-care of the planet. So as we drop down the frequencies, we start to become more and more dense. We start to become more gross physical. And when we're more gross physical, those things that would not affect us if we were a higher frequency and less gross physical, more towards the fourth frequency level, the lower astral level, then we start to become a bit like rather than being a very, very wide gauze or fishnet type of effect for our body, where things pass through it, we start to become denser, and that fishnet becomes a wall instead, and starts to stop things going through. And that's when things like viruses start to affect us, because rather than passing through us or not affecting us or connecting to us, they start to attach to us and start to cause dysfunction and disease. And that's what viruses do, and other things like cancers do. So we need to understand that we need to maintain the way in which we think, behave, and act in a higher frequency way. And that means that if we don't do that, we start to get ill. We start to die at a younger age, because the body ages faster, because it's subject to lots of different diseases. So in essence, thinking in a higher frequency way is another way in which we're being warned. So the first warning is about looking after the environment. Second warning is that we're not thinking, behaving, and acting in the correct ways. That means that we are being affected by these diseases. And the third way in which we're not thinking, behaving, and acting right is how we interact with each other. And for us to be considered to be an advanced civilization, we need to work together in a completely neutral, service-based way, where no one individual has a higher status than anybody else. We don't seek material wealth. We don't seek status. We just seek to work with each other, do what we need to do, which maybe, some jobs can be classified in the material world as being of a higher value than others. But if you look at the whole picture, every job, irrespective of whether it's a small job or a big job, carries the same weight, because it all helps towards how we interact with each other. So once we start to understand that we're all one, and that we are all equal, then we start to realize that actually we need to work together to make sure that everybody is equal. And that means that there's no discrimination for sex, creed, or ability, and that we make sure that we're all existing in a similar level of comfort in our environment, and our level of reward, if you have it, or remuneration is equal, irrespective of what position we do. And then we start to work with each other, make sure that we have service to each other. So when we think about what we're doing, we make sure that what we're doing is conducive to helping everybody around us. So we don't think, behave, and act in a selfish way. We work in a way which is going to benefit everybody else as well, not just ourselves. And that means that things like conflict, which is what we're experiencing right now between Russia and the Ukraine, won't happen, because there won't be any worries about boundaries between countries, because there won't be any countries. We'll all exist together. So this is the third sort of warning we're getting, is that we need to stop fighting each other and start working together. And it's only then when we stop fighting each other, we look after ourselves in terms of how we think, behave, and act, we have service to each other, and we start to look after the environment, that we can then start to consider ourselves to be a highly advanced civilization. And then, as we rise through the frequencies as a function of that, the earth starts to repair itself and starts to heal. Trees grow again. Pollution drops down. We're a higher frequency. We start to live, have our incarnation for longer, so we live longer. We don't get diseases. We stay healthy for longer, and we start to look after each other, so we don't need to have weapons, because we're not going to be in conflict with each other, because everybody's thinking about how they interact with each other and how it will affect each other, and everybody will be equal. And then as a function of that, we rise to the frequencies and we start to be able to perceive those other entities that exist in the other frequencies above the gross physical. And so then we'll start to see those other incarnate entities, those that we sometimes call aliens, that they're already here and they're existing here and observing what we're doing. And we will then start to be able to be introduced to the potential to move further around our particular location within the galaxy, and even potentially with the higher frequencies as well, whilst we incarnate. Okay, so that's really today's lecture, is understanding that we've got 3 milestones, 3 signposts, that we're doing things wrong, and actually we need to improve ourselves in those three genres of work: environmental, looking after each other, self-care, thinking in higher frequency thoughts, behaviors, and actions, and negating conflict, which all results in us being equals. Okay, so let's now move on to the questions and answers. Well, welcome to the questions and answers session of this particular Satsanga. And I can see we've also got some messages coming in already, so that's great. So this is going to start the first question, which is from N in Manitoba in Canada. And it's basically about our guides. And the question is, what do our guides and helpers do in the energetic when they're not assisting us? I've often wondered, do they take breaks or holidays, or do they work 24/7 because they don't have a body to bog them down? Does it even feel like work? Do they take vacations? Do they even need them? Are they around us all the time? And do they hear us every time we talk to them? Can they hear us if we just think about them? Do they ever leave our side and do other things? How are the guides chosen for us? Are they all ascended masters or just sentient beings like us who have evolved into a higher dimension? Do they have a minimum amount of experience to be a guide, and do they go to guide school? And what about the helpers? Right, well, firstly, the helpers are those entities really who are, they decided not to be in the evolutionary cycle. They decided to be in the service side of things. So it's a very human way of saying it, by the way. But basically, what it is, the guide and the helpers are really entities that are, they evolve, but they don't evolve as a direct function of what they do. They evolve as a function of the, shall I say, the evolutionary content we donate to them as because of what we're doing. Now, it's more difficult, can you believe, for us to be in the evolutionary cycle than it is for them to be in the service side of those entities who are in the evolutionary cycle. So what they're doing is not classified as being as important, but it is important because they make sure that we are in the right place at the right time, doing the right things in the right circumstances, in the right environment. So in essence, they are doing a lot of work, but we're the primary concern. So they don't really have any rest breaks as such. In fact, they don't focus wholly on what you see now. They focus on all the parallel versions as well of what we are. So they're involved in all the particular permutations of what we can do from a fractalized sense if we take different choices, or have a potential for different choices, or the possible possibility of the possible possibility, etc., of different choices. So they're with us pretty much all the time, certainly when we are incarnate. And they're working with us in this particular version, this particular event space, and all the other event spaces as well. Now, it's rare for these entities to enter into the evolutionary cycle, but it can happen, specifically if they want to experience what it's like to be in the evolutionary cycle, and then go back into the service provision side of things for those who are in the evolutionary cycle. And it's also rare for entities that are in the evolutionary cycle to move into the guide side or the helpers side. So that's one of the things to think about, is that they are pretty specialized in what they do. They've chosen to do this particular role to support those entities that are making the sacrifice of moving into the evolutionary cycle, which is very, very difficult. And they're not ascended masters, because an ascended master is really classified as being an entity that has mastered incarnation and therefore ascended past or beyond the need to incarnate to continue its evolution progression. So they're not ascended masters from that perspective, and they tend to operate in the higher frequencies within the higher dimensions, clearly than where we are right now. So I think that just about answers this question. But the last part was, can I aim for this position down the road? That's a function of the choice of your true energetic self, your Godhead, Oversoul, or higher self, as to whether or not it would choose to be in the service side in terms of being service to those entities that are within the evolutionary cycle. So it's something you could think about once you finish this particular incarnation, but I think that there will be a whole host of other things, and they don't really take a break, basically, because once we've finished doing what we're doing, everything is sort of is analysed or checked out to see how we basically all manage to work with the life plan we chose, the circumstances the aspects of that life plan is supposed to be within, and the environment as well. So we look at our efficiency in terms of how we communicate with each other and how well the life plan was in fact acted out. So it's a good question. Thank you. Okay, so the next question. So what's the difference between bilocation and parallel cells? Wendy Kennedy said that when we have more sentient energy, we can bilocate and create two bodies in different locations. But aren't parallel cells doing that anyway? Is it us or event space doing the copying? Well, parallel conditions is based upon the function of event space. Bilocation is simply a function of an advanced entity incarnating the physical that is capable of creating two vehicles, two bodies, and can occupy at will any of those two bodies when it decides to. That also potentially means that they could split the sentience, in effect creating a twin flame condition where the same sentience is in two bodies. So one is particularly associated with being in the physical universe, whereas the other one is a function of being anywhere, really, anywhere within the multiverse as a function of the work that event space does if we make decisions. Okay, so it's not the same thing. They're two different things, definitely. Next question is human life sacred or not? How many Ukrainian civilians, women and children need to die before the rest of the world steps in to stop the madman? Yes, I agree, with nuclear and chemical weapons. These souls are advanced souls. Any soul that goes through this sort of mass conflict, mass, as we say, I can't think of the right word to say it, but it's, being in desperation and despair and not being able to do anything. So they're very advanced, and they're helping the world to provide a focus on what we shouldn't be doing. And in the lecture, actually, that's associated with this, I've gone through the 3 milestones that we're experiencing right now. One of the milestones is to do with looking after our environment, or should we say not looking after it. One of them is to do with being a lower frequency and therefore creating the condition where the human body and others can be affected by virus, which is because when we're higher frequency, we don't get ill because the viruses can't stick to us because we're too diverse in terms of our frequency. And the next one is working together properly. And so a focus on, sometimes we need to focus, and sometimes we have an advanced soul who is incarnate and is there to provide a focus for showing us what we shouldn't be doing, and to stop it, we have to work together. So you've got 3 areas there that are happening all at the same time. And so these souls are a part of that, they're part of the sort of the overall background, are experiencing, extreme conditions because they're helping us to understand that we shouldn't do it. And at some point we will get together and we'll find a way to stop this sort of thing happening ever again. So they're advanced souls, basically. And in fact, Celia and I have put our names forward to receive some refugees when we get assigned them. So we will be looking after a couple of them, hopefully. So it's yeah, just to help and just be of service in some way. Next one. Hello, Nina. I have a question regarding traversing the frequencies. In the Origin Speaks, the Origin talks about dimensional evolution when it touches, where it touches the point and how an entity can work within or with the dimension, probably frequency as well, where the test resides. Do I understand this correctly? Would this mean that a still evolving entity cannot access dimensions frequencies above their test position? If yes, would that explain the lack of seeing or experiencing higher levels when we do the traversing the frequencies techniques? From the perspective of moving the energies associated with the sentience that's assigned to a true energetic self, we can operate within basically 3 frequencies or 3 dimensions. That's above, that's immediately above, that's immediately below, and where we are. That's pretty much the rule, from my understanding. I think that was in the history of God as well. And we can't move. We can move it in and around it, but we can't move out of it. However, the sentience can experience those other levels. So with the traversing the frequencies, even though we're in the lowest frequencies associated with the multiverse, we can still project our sentience into these levels and experience and communicate and interact with different entities that are there. So there's 2 different things. One is the movement of the sentience and the associated energy in and around the multiverse, which is basically to do with three full dimensions: the one you're in, the one above, the one below. And the other one is to do with, you can project the sentience actually wherever you want to, within the confines of the environment that we've been given by a source. Okay. And sometimes when we go to these high levels, we don't see anything because what's there isn't for us, or we're not expansive enough to be able to understand what's being given to us, whether it's clairaudiently, whether it's intuitively, or whether it's clairvoyantly. And so we may need to get more experience in going at different levels and getting different expansive experiences before we can go back and actually start to understand what's there. And sometimes there's nothing there. Sometimes it's just being there and being part of the frequencies and the energies that are there. That will eventually allow us to become integrated with the essence of what's there. But it's a more subtle way of communicating. Okay, got 17 questions. Wow. This is from D. Who will stop the wars? Eventually, we all will. We're going to go through a period of dare I say, time, event space, where we are in effect collectively going to take responsibility for our environment, our health, our thought processes, how we think, behave, and act, which causes lower frequencies or higher frequencies, and how we interact with others as well. And when we get all this right together, then we'll rise to the frequencies, and then we'll be able to integrate and communicate with other entities that are here at a higher frequency and are in a higher frequency and throughout the rest of this particular galaxy and the other galaxies beyond this galaxy in the frequencies local to us, which will be the first frequency above us, which is the 4th frequency, which in a sense, which in essence is the lower astral. Okay, good. Next question's from EY. The Origin seems to have quite a sense of humor. Can you tell us the role of play and humor for the source and Origin? I was told this. I'm just making sure I'm going to give you the right answer. It's really all about enjoying what's being experienced and how to experience it and what's being done within that experience, and also not being, shall we say, too hard on themselves. But we can be too hard on ourselves if we don't think we've achieved something we wanted to achieve in the way we wanted to achieve it, and so we can be very disappointed in what we're doing. So the humor side is like giving ourselves a break, to almost answer one of the previous questions, where we start to see the other side of things that isn't totally formal or totally serious, but we start to see that it's not important sometimes to be so totally focused on something, because that total focus can in actual fact be a distraction in its own right, or be a block in its own right, or create resistance in its own right. So having a level of humor, I mean, their level of humor is significantly different and diverse from ours, is actually very important in terms of allowing them to create a condition where they can sort of observe things from a different perspective, enjoy what they did, what they think they did right, what they think they did wrong, and just take it on board as being that's evolution, and then move onwards. Basically, that's the way forward to that. Yeah, I'm being told yes. Okay, thank you. And it's saying to us all, just chill out a bit. You know, just enjoy being here. Be responsible for what you do, and think of everything you do as being part of the evolutionary cycle, not just for yourself, but for us, for source and origin as well. AP, is this individual, me, is Guy Stephen Needler in the evolutionary cycle? Personally, I'm confused about this. I'll tell you why. Because I was told in one of the books, I think it's either the curators or the work that was going within the book I'm doing. I'm just finished now, which is called The Arm. But I'm actually not in the evolutionary cycle, which is a bit which is a bit disappointing from some perspectives. But that's because of the, shall I say, the genre of sentience associated with my test, or true sentient self rather than true energetic self. So not basically. But it doesn't stop me doing what I'm doing, even though it's a bit weird for my particular genre of sentience. Next question: is lust, sexual immorality, addiction also part of a learning and evolving experiencing? It is, and it's also a function of understanding how to control karma from those perspectives. Because if we consider that some of these things can be addictive, yeah, we can demand to have sex, we can demand that we can seek to have certain sensory responses and reactions, from drugs as well, from alcohol and smoke, and including things like food, chocolates for one. We can start to become addicted to them. Now, being addicted to something which is physical creates karma, and karma is an overall, shall we say, description for anything that anchors us to a low frequency, and therefore makes us stay here, or wanting to come back and experience it again, or it stops us from ascending the frequencies while we're in a particular incarnation. So it's something to avoid. It's something to, clearly we have to participate in some of these things to be part of what we are here, but the objective is not to get addicted to it. Okay, next question from D again. Do we have any more opportunity to see both sides of the coin, so to speak, when we have two or more souls in our body? Is this an advantage or benefit? How is it helpful? With those individuals who have more than one soul in their body, there is the one that is usually in control, is the one that is interacting with you all right now. So that's who you think you are, is the animating soul. So that solar aspect which is in the body, which is controlling the body, is the dominant soul. There can be other souls that are there as just basically observers. They don't want to, or haven't got the chance to, incarnate and participate in a life plan and animate a body, but they can be there and observe and experience what the primary soul is doing. So it's, from that perspective, it's not really a benefit to us, unless one of them decides it wants to take over. Then we get sort of psychotic, schizophrenic problems and psychological problems, where from the outside perspective, people seeing us, they see us change personalities all the time, and this is not good, because it means that the dominant soul that's supposed to be animating the body is no longer in control, and so that's when we start to have to compartmentalize them, so that we can give the, so should we say, the authority to animate the body back to the dominant soul. So it's not really of any benefit to us at all to be able to understand what the souls are doing there. You know, sometimes human beings are a little bit too a bit too curious. Okay, it distracts us. Next one's from AP. There is someone I know who I feel connected deeply with. So and it's spiritually. She's also responsible for my spiritual awakening. She does not know me and we haven't met yet in the physical world. Is it possible that our higher selves are communicating with each other in the energetic? Yes, clearly, yeah. Because we do an awful lot in the background. What's sort of the interface here is actually quite limited in terms of how we integrate with each other and we communicate with each other. But when the body is asleep and it's recharging and get rid of all the sort of the waste products and the free radicals and all these sorts of things, the aspect of soul can move out of the body and can do a lot of things that we don't actually remember. And the reason why we don't remember it is because we've come back down to low frequencies to re-enter back in the body again. And that sort of strips off those memories because it's like they lose your communicative bandwidth. And also sometimes it's not important for us to remember or recognize what we did do or what we experienced, because it would be a distraction for us here right now. Okay, good. And this is from B. Hinduism has a tradition of doing a yearly puja or worship of those who are dead in the family. There are lots of rules regarding these rituals. Are they still relevant? Who came up with those rules and rituals? I don't know who came up with them, but in terms of showing respect, I think it's a good idea. I think that we should respect the teachings and the education that we were given by our elders, because they've experienced things that we are experiencing. And it's disappointing to see children or friends or people or even work colleagues not pay attention to the advice of the elders when they've experienced what they're going through, and they're trying to give them advice. So I think it's good to sort of show respect to them and remember them, but it's not good to hang on to them, because you throw energy to them and you do hold them back a little bit from moving onwards and upwards back into the frequencies and maybe into communing with their true energetic self. So it's a good thing to respect them, and it's a good thing to remember them, but not to hang on to them. That's not very good for them. But I suspect the rules and traditions have basically come from the need to remember knowledge and to respect the people who have given that knowledge. Like we respect scientists like Newton and Galileo, those sort of people. We don't pray for them, we don't revere them, but we respect them as scientists. And it's the same thing for people who are older. AP, is there any difference between Krishna, Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha? Are they all the same one or more advanced than the other? They are. We had an old Satsanga based upon this, and the US will know this. Basically, they're all different. They come from different locations, and some of them come from different source entities to experience different aspects of what they're doing. And our particular source entity having quite a diverse way of experiencing itself, and we're helping it do that because we're individualized, smaller individualized units of its own sentience, is a particularly so how can I say it, multipulous way of doing it. Parallel upon parallel upon parallel. So they're different. They're from different true energetic selves, and those true energetic cells, I'll get my teeth back in, basically are outside of the need to incarnate, even though they can still if they want to. Okay. Next part of this is, I'm having a huge spiritual awakening and downloads over 2 years now, but I've also got addicted to certain low frequency things. Can you explain what's happening? Yeah, well, the whole world is experiencing low frequency. I mean, from about 2012 onwards, we've started to come down the frequencies, more noticeable in the last 3 or 4 years. And this low frequency, this ambient low frequency affects us. Even though we think we're a higher frequency, we are a higher frequency, we start to get complacent, and we don't do the things like meditation as often as we should do. We don't open our chakras like we should do. We don't give ourselves time to be in the way we should do, and so we start to get hooked into and caught up with all the different things associated with being in the physical. And so that brings us down, and it's significantly easier to come down the frequencies than it is to go up. I mean, you think about how difficult it is to stop yourself from going to sleep sometimes if you're not if you're not an insomniac. You know, it's like just going to sleep slowly. It would be a bit like being in a room where there's no oxygen, and you slowly sort of start to poison yourself with your own carbon dioxide. You just slowly go to sleep. You can't stop it, and that's why we start to think, behave, and act in low frequency ways. So the thing to do is, if you're noticing you're doing it, stop yourself. I very quickly had an experience where I had a similar thing, but I was driving home and I was eating a sweet, and I had a real battle with myself not to throw the sweet wrapper out the window. And that's a low frequency thought, and a behavior and a potential action. And I suddenly thought to myself, I wouldn't have done this like 2 weeks ago. What's going on? And I meditated on it, and that's when I realized the frequencies were dropping down. And so if you can stop yourself, do so. That's the best way forwards. Next question is from RS. Hello, Guy. For context, I'm currently reading The Curators and have read all of your books up to it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Your channel work is amazing, but I've noticed one particular glaring omission. Sorry. Compared to the completeness of your knowledge, your books tend to avoid topic of negative entities negative entities or beings, and the negative path of evolution and conflict between the positive and negative polarities that exist also in the next higher dimensions. Right, okay. For what reason did Source Entity 1 not comment on those non-human beings who seek the enslavement of others and seek to control, manipulate for power? Is it due to your own lack of contact with that part of the multiverse? I see things in a different way. There has to be complete experiential condition to allow evolution to happen. And that means that we have to experience everything. We can't just experience what's the so-called good. We have to experience the so-called bad. We have to experience all the bits in the middle as well, to be able to understand what it's like to have a completely holistic experience in a certain environment, in a certain circumstance with the other entities in those environments. So I see it as being just experiences rather than, and the Source does this, it's very detached. It sees it as experiences, and we do what we do to ourselves because we've agreed to do it, to experience it in serious like. And that sounds a bit bizarre, really, when you think about it from the human condition. Who would want to give themselves cancer? You know, who would want to experience being mugged? Who would want to experience dying in an airplane crash? Who would want to experience, etc., etc., etc.? We want to experience joy. We want to experience being successful. We want to experience having wonderful partners. So, but why would we want to experience all that as well? So we can't just label ourselves as wanting to experience the good things. We have to experience everything as well, and we choose to. And so from the perspective of things like even experiencing slavery, and being put into prostitution, those sort of things, we chose to do it. And it's something which as human beings, it's very difficult to swallow. But it's from a higher perspective, when you see it, you think, okay, yeah, I can understand that. I can understand people wanting to experience being bombed in Ukraine. I can understand people wanting to experience things like motor neuron disease. I can understand why people want to experience going close to death with certain diseases and then recovering miraculously. It's because it's all part of the total set of experience that gives us evolution, a balanced level of evolution. And that's why the origin allows us to do it, and that's why we plan it as well. And that's why I don't say good or bad. It's all experience. So I hope that explains it. Maybe it's something that should be in one of the next books, which I'm writing. Okay, I think it should be. Okay, AP. Right, we're down to, I think we're near into our last 10 minutes, so I'll be careful. Right, got cut off last time. When I was first projected into my true energetic self as an individual, when I was first projected from my true energetic self as an individualized unit, if I'm right now in a cycle of reincarnation, then was there any time when I was projected for the first time? Was I projected into a human vehicle? you were projected into a human vehicle, but not as this type. The very first human vehicles we used, and in effect, that is, it's almost not a human being body from our perspective. So in real terms, your first incarnation was in the human sense on Earth, but at a higher frequency, and so the body was a different type. Okay, that's but it's not uncommon for people to start their incarnations in other bodies, in other locations within the physical universe, not specifically on Earth. The next question is, if I were to see the origin today, how would it look like? I don't know. I don't know how the origin looks, to be honest. I've seen images of sentience and energy coupled together as balls from the 12 origins experiment. But in terms of that, that's just showing something which was within the origin itself still. So I can't explain it. I can communicate with aspects of it. I can communicate with aspects of the source. Nobody, well, we're here, can communicate with all of the source or all of the origin. It's just far too big. The only thing I can say is that everything within the structure of the origin in this particular group of 12 expands by a function of the power of 12. So it's so infinitesimally large that it's like, you just think of yourself as being a quark in your body now. How would you experience that? That's the way to think of it. You couldn't. There's no way of explaining it. There's no way of understanding it. All I can tell you is that when I'm in communing with it, it's like the most amazing love ever. You know, you experience expansivity beyond belief. You experience that which you can cope with, by the way, and you experience all sorts of different levels of communication, not just verbal, audible, or just intuitively. Okay. So next question: does energy, like electricity, have heat and heat have sentience? So that everything in the origin is energy. Then what's the difference between origin and electricity and heat and energy? Everything that sees, shall we say, structure is associated with sentience, or will be associated with sentience. So there is lots of areas within the origin which doesn't have sentience associated with it, and that's one of the things that our source is doing, along with the other source entities, is to try to completely occupy and map out and experience everything that can be done within certain frequencies, subdimensional components and 4 dimensions, and experience that and then move on. When that happens, when sentience touches it, it then starts to occupy that energy. So then it becomes part of it and part of this polyomniscience. And so my understanding is that until it's been touched by sentience, it's just raw structure, whatever it is, whether it's frequency, whether it's zones, whether it's continuums, etc. It's just raw structure. You can classify it as energy if you want to. And so in essence, not everything has sentience associated with it yet. The whole point of the work that the origin is doing and we're doing is to accelerate the population of sentience in this structure. That's the whole point of it. That comes out in the book on the Another question. Wow. Is Guy Stephen Needler an ascended master? I don't consider myself to be an ascended master. That's the quick answer. I have been called one by other people, but I don't see myself as that at all. I just see myself as somebody doing a job and helping people to expand their own sentience and their own knowledge of what we really are and how we really exist. So okay, we've already answered this. Is he in the evolutionary cycle? No, I've been told I'm not, so I'm disappointed in this. And am I from SE1? No. The difference between Krishna, Babaji, and Jesus and the is that they are part of a source entity. The as non-captive or pure are sentients that are outside of any of the structural properties of any of the source entities. They exist within the origin rather than a particular source entity. Next question: what's the difference between you? Okay, me, it says, and Jesus Christ. What is the difference between my true energetic self and Jesus's? Only evolution. All true energetic selves are equal. The only difference is basically what is the, shall I say, the amount of evolutionary progression that's been achieved by that true energetic self and its aspects in the period that we've experienced in this particular evolutionary cycle. That's the only difference. And the next one, can you explain in detail that when and how the soul gets into the human vehicle? What I'm going to do is take a portion of the dialogues and send it out to people via email, and I might even blog it. But because basically in that book it explains in detail how a soul enters a human body, which is really quite a complicated thing, and it's too much for this particular satsanga. So I'll cut a piece out and I'll email it, okay, to all the people who are in the in this satsanga. Let's see, just making sure now. Okay, yeah, AP. Right, we can do that. It's quite complicated, to be honest, quite complicated. Next question, B. We've only got 3.5 minutes left. How do you know the difference between thoughts and spiritual downloads? Downloads would be when we experience the ability to understand something that we haven't got the earthly experience of. If you've got no experience, or you have no learning of something, but you understand it fully at the first time you've experienced it physically, then then you've experienced a download. That's the best way to put that. Next question, why are there so many ascended masters are from India or Hinduism? Is there anything special about India? Yeah, well, India was predominantly spiritually aligned, whereas the West and other parts of the world were predominantly materialistically aligned. So although there's no real evidence to suggest there are more ascended masters in India than anywhere else in the world, it's just that they recognize them. And there are thousands of ascended masters. There are thousands of named ascended masters. So that's the way to think of it, is that there are lots of entities that have incarnated and moved beyond the need to incarnate in any of the frequencies associated with the physical universe to evolve. How Hindus were able to gain access to all these information many thousands of years ago. Hinduism and a lot of the artwork is basically carryover knowledge from the Atlantean period. So a lot of the science associated with Hinduism is in effect a function of that which was passed on down the generations from those individuals who survived the Atlantean fall. Okay. Next question, what is the real cause of ignorance? Some people fight by saying there is no God, or some people fight by saying that their version of God is correct. So what prevents the souls from discovering the reality? Why do they live in denial, illusion, and ignorance and keep fighting each other? Because they've been brainwashed by their teachers to state that this is the way forwards and no other route. It's like saying that only one road goes to Rome. There are many roads to Rome. It's just the particular road that you choose is either a long road, a short road, or a meandering road. Okay, so it's all religions are born from a single truth. It's just that the teachers have been human and they have put their own idea on it, or they've got a different way of doing it which works. Okay. So the next question is, what if I can lose my individuality and become one with the source after this lifetime is over? Is it something that is totally dependent upon my free will, and if I no longer want to remain individualized? Basically, that's a function of I suppose a joint desire with your true energetic self and all the other aspects that are projected from the true energetic self collectively. And also it's usually a function of the amount of evolutionary progression that's been accrued by that true energetic self. Normally a total communion with the source via the true energetic self's doing it is a function of it finishing its evolutionary cycle. So that means when every aspect of itself is experienced every environment that's possible within the multiverse and every circumstance, and with every interaction as well. So it's quite comprehensive. So you're more likely to feel that you can lose your individuality and go into full communion with your true and energetic self rather than source. Okay. Next one, NS. How can we sort out our coexisting souls or aspects of ourselves when we lose control of our vehicle, that is? Can we even do it? The answer to that is it's difficult for us as individuals to know that we're losing control, other than the fact we can hear voices or we see things. Now, if we do that, it usually takes somebody else to help us. So unless you've got a really good healer who can compartmentalize those souls that should be passive but active in terms of trying to control the vehicle or the body that you're in, it's almost impossible, really. And that's why so many people end up on medication, because they haven't got a good healer, and it's extremely difficult to do it themselves. Most individuals don't. They end up living with the interaction with, or the interruption with, their existence with those other souls taking over and fighting for, shall I say, dominance of the body. So it's basically something we can't really do on our own. It's something we need help on, and that's why a good healer is important. Next one's from D. Leadership on this planet seems poor. Can we improve the overall leadership? Is this possible? Collectively, we need to understand which leaders are good, which leaders are bad, and because ultimately we put them there. So in essence, when we understand what the type of leader we want for the type of work we want them to do, and who can fill that role properly without getting corrupted is available, then we should choose them. Other than that, the only way forwards is to self-govern, and to create a condition where something else governs us, such as artificial intelligence. But the question is, if human beings can be corrupted, can AI? The answer is potentially. So in effect, we need to be careful how we do govern ourselves. And I feel that with the milestones or the signposts we're experiencing at the moment, with the environment, with the low frequency thoughts, behaviors, and actions, giving us biological issues, virus, dysfunctions or diseases, and also conflicts, we need to understand ourselves at the grassroots level first. Be of service to each other, and if we're of service to each other, then we start to self-govern, and then we don't need to have leaders. Although we might choose to have people who inspire us, or we might choose to have people who can create a focus for us in terms of our collective desire to move forwards. Thank you, everybody, and namaste to you all, and think high thoughts. Welcome to the meditation side of this world, Satsanga. And what we're going to do today is to teach you how to do Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is an advancement from Raja Yoga, which is the king of yogas, which is more mental. It's actually a pranayama, which is a breathing exercise with a focus. And this particular form of meditation is something that Paramahansa Yogananda used to teach, and is also one of the ways in which we can raise our frequencies and burn off karma. Burning off karma is one of the ways he used to describe that we sort of raise our frequencies and remove the connection we have with the gross physical. Okay, karma being one of those myriad ways that we get addicted to being here, or wanting to experience being here. So very quickly, just to explain the posture we have to have. Normal posture, you can be cross-legged, or in full or half lotus, with the back or spine erect, or you can be sitting in your straight-backed chair, and again with your feet flat on the ground, your hands palm uppermost on your upper thighs, with the legs meet the lower body. Closed eyes are gently focused on the spiritual or third eye, the location of it, which is in between the two eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. And then we start to breathe. Okay. Now the breathing is simply through the mouth, but we breathe with the air going towards the back of the throat. So as we breathe in, the sound sounds like haw. So I'll do it loud so you can hear it. Okay. And as we breathe out, we again get the expired air going towards the back of the throat and out of the mouth. And it sounds like E. I'll say it loud again. Now, the way I'm doing it there is very pronounced. I'm expressing it so that you can hear the thought processes around it. That's how the breath sounds when you're breathing in and you're breathing out. Sounds like haw and E. When the air is coming into the mouth, going to the back of the throat and down into the lungs, and then coming from the lungs, the back of the mouth, and going out through the mouth. And that's, like I say, it's very pronounced in that instance. When I do it, you can hardly hear it because I'm not doing it fast. Okay, if you do it too fast, you get out of breath. Simple. So do it just slowly and in a way that is comfortable for you. I don't know if you can hear this through the microphone, but it's okay. So when you're doing this, you're concentrating on the air coming in, going to the lungs, and then going out to the mouth. And again, coming in, it goes to the back of the mouth and down. And when you expire, it goes from the lungs back to the back of the mouth and out again. On top of this is a visualization, which is very important because this is the other part of Kriya Yoga. We visualize as we breathe in, energy coming from our coccyx up the center of the spine. The energy center of the spine is called the Sushumna. Up the spine, it's the base of the skull. The area is called the medulla oblongata. The Hindus call it the mouth of God, where a lot of energy comes in. And then diagonally across to the location of the origin of the spiritual or third eye. And then when we breathe out, we visualize the energy coming back in through the third eye, diagonally across the base of the skull with the medulla oblongata is, down the spine to the coccyx. And if you do this when you're breathing, you can feel the energy moving up the coccyx to the base of the skull, medulla, diagonally across and going out to the spiritual or third eye location. And then when you're breathing out, you can feel it coming back in again, going diagonally across your head to the base of the skull where the medulla is, and going down your spine to your coccyx. And as you keep doing this on a regular basis, you'll feel the energies moving up and down, getting quite pronounced. And after you've done it for several times, I mean, probably months, you'll start to feel the energies really pronounced, and your spine will feel like it's on fire. And then you start to experience other things where you'll be able to start to see the representation in your closed eye vision, your perceptual vision of the spiritual or third eye, which is basically a ring of gold where the background is purple and the inside is purple, and inside that inside purple you start to see what appears to be a five-pointed star, the Star of David. And from there, that is the portal and one of the ways in which your sentience can leave the body and go into, which is, so it transcends the body, hence the name transcendental meditation. Okay, the Hindus call it samadhi. Okay, being in communion with God or source. So you can move out, and basically it's a way of doing the astral traveling, basically it's moving out of the body. But right now we're just going to do the Kriya Yoga. So as we breathe in, we visualize the energy coming up from the coccyx, up the spine, the base of the skull, diagonally across to and out of the spiritual third eye. As you breathe out, the energy comes in through the area of the spiritual third eye, diagonally across to the base of the skull where the medulla oblongata is, down the spine to the coccyx. So that's the process. So let's do that now. Let's do this Kriya Yoga. And they say that 12 is enough, and that you should do no more than 12 times 12. Well, if you do 12 times 12, that's 144. And if you count on your left hand, for instance, with your thumb, use your thumb as a counter, and every time you do a Kriya, one whole Kriya is the breathing in and the breathing out, with the energy going out and coming in. And then point your thumb onto the first segment of your little finger as one, and then the second segment is two, and the third segment by the tip of your finger where the nail is three, and then you do the same thing on your ring finger, then your middle finger, and then your dominant finger, your pointing finger. Then you've got 12. That's on the left hand. And if you do the same thing on your right hand, so every time you've done 12, you then put your thumb on one of those sections of your fingers, okay? You then start to get 1 12, 2 12s, 3 12s, 4 12s, 5 12s, 6 12s, 7 12s, 8 12s, 9 12s, 10 12s, 11 12s, 12 12s. And when you've done that, you end up with your thumb on the end of your forefinger, your dominant, your pointing finger, on both sides. So you look like you've got your fingers in the archetypical meditative posture, where your thumb and your forefinger are touching, because you've done 12 times 12 Kriyas. Okay, so think of that. Think of those pictures where you see the forefinger and the thumb pointed together on top of the upper thighs, and that's because a yogi has done 12 times 12 Kriyas. Okay, so just think of that. Okay, so let's do this Kriya Yoga. Again, breathe in, sounds like ho. Breathing out sounds like e, e. And the air you feel at the back of your throat. Sometimes it's good to use to lubricate the larynx with a little bit of olive oil. If you don't feel the need for that, if your throat doesn't dry out, then don't worry. A little bit of olive oil is useful. It does lubricate the larynx. About a half a teaspoonful is useful. Okay, so just to start, remember, as you breathe in, if this sound like ho, your breath goes to the back of the throat and down to your lungs. At the same time, you visualize your energy going from your coccyx up the center of your spine through this conduit we call the sushumna, the base of the skull, where the medulla oblongata is, what the Hindus call the mouth of God, where energy comes into, and then diagonally across to your spiritual third eye location, and then out. And as you breathe out, the air goes out from your lungs, through your windpipe, the back of the throat and out the mouth, and your energy comes back into the spiritual third eye, the back of the head, the base of the skull where the medulla oblongata is, down the spine, through the sushumna, back to your coccyx. We're going to do 12 Kriyas. Yeah? 12 Kriyas. And then you'll have the idea, and we'll finish the meditation, and then you can do this as long as you want. But they say do 12, master 12 Kriyas first, and then you can add another 12 on, and another 12. Okay. Don't think, though, that the number of Kriyas that you do makes you able to connect faster. It's the quality of Kriya. Paramahansa Yogananda used to say that one Kriya would do the job, but he was an advanced soul and advanced in his understanding whilst incarnate. So let's do these 12 Kriyas. Okay, my thumb is in the air at the moment on my left hand. From starting, that's one. So my thumb is now on the first section. If every finger has got 3 sections, the first section closest to the palm. Second Kriya. Thumb is now in the second section of the little finger. Third Kriya. Thumb is now in the third section of my little finger, where the tip of the finger is and the nail. Fourth Kriya. Thumb is now on the fifth section, or the first section of the ring finger. Okay. Let's do the fifth Kriya. Okay. Thumb is now in the fifth section, which is the second section of my ring finger. Let's do the sixth Kriya. Okay. Thumb is on the third section of my ring finger where the nail is. Okay. That's the sixth Kriya done. Let's do the seventh Kriya. So it's now on the first section of my middle finger. Okay, that's the seventh Kriya. Let's do the eighth Kriya. Okay, my thumb is now on the second section of the middle finger. Let's do the ninth Kriya. Yeah, thumb is now on the third section of the middle finger, so ninth section. Let's do the 10th now. Yeah, my thumb is on the first section of my forefinger, my pointing finger, my dominant finger. Let's do the 11th. Okay, my thumb is now on the second section of my forefinger, my pointing finger, and do the last, the 12th Kriya. And then my thumb is on the third section of my forefinger or my pointing finger. And now if I was starting to do, if I was in the first of the 12 12s, my thumb on my right hand side, on my right hand, would now be on the first section of my little finger. So that would be equal to 1 12s. And then when we start again, we have the thumb on the first of the second 12s would be on the first section of my little finger on my left hand side. So that's how to do Kriya Yoga. Basically it's pranayama and breathing. Now you'll notice the breathing in is opposite to the energy going out. The energy goes from the coccyx up towards the spine, towards the back of the skull, with the medulla oblongata arteries, and diagonally across to your forehead and out. But you're breathing in, so it's the opposite of what you would think. And then when you're breathing out, the energy comes back in, then diagonally across to the base of the spine with the medulla oblongata arteries, down the sushumna in the center of the spine, down towards the coccyx. So try to remember that the energy comes in and out is opposite to how you're breathing in. So you're breathing in, energy goes out. Breathing out, energy comes in. And that's the way to think of it. So try that at home, anytime. Do 12 first. And then when you finish your 12, you can just stay in meditation, stay with a blank mind, focusing on your breathing in and breathing out. Okay, normal breathing in and breathing out. So once you've done your 12 Kriyas, just function on your breathing in and breathing out. Once you've mastered those 12, then you can then start to think about adding another 12 and adding another 12. Okay, master breathing in and breathing out, and master the energies going up the spine and out through the spiritual or third eye, and then back into the spiritual or third eye and back down the spine again. That's it for this month. Thank you very much for attending and listening and downloading, and looking forward to the next Satsanga in April. So namaste to you all, and God's love to you all.